What the fuck is up, guys? How you guys doing? It's Sunday night. Tonight I have a very special guest, Mr. Tom Mannion, and I've known Tom for a couple years since I moved here. Like I think I probably met him at the first Pork Fest I went to, or maybe no, it was the next Pork Fest. I don't know. I've been to a couple Pork Fests now, but he's probably like my favorite person in the New Hampshire State House. He's an elected representative for Pelham, and he's a Ron Paul libertarian. He's a veteran. He's a huge advocate for Defend the Guard, gun rights, anti-war all the way. And he's just base as fuck. Like, I think he consistently ranks amongst the top in the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance ratings for liberty ratings in New Hampshire. I'm going to bring him on stage so that he can introduce himself. Tom, what is up, brother? How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me on. This is fantastic.
Dude, I'm stoked to have you. So I guess kind of give yourself like a little brief introduction, like kind of tell us, who you are, what you're about, what you've done, all that.
You nailed it right off the bat. So like I moved to New Hampshire during lockdowns in 2020. I had to escape Massachusetts because that's where I grew up. It was awful. Lockdowns down there were terrible. They were locking down gyms, they were locking down restaurants, locking down businesses, everything. I had to get to New Hampshire as quickly as possible. And then once I got here, I was like, I need to stay involved to make sure this kind of crap will never happen again. So that's why I reached out to people in town, local GOP, linked up, and I ran for office as quickly as I could, got elected within the 2 years, like right after the 2-year mark. Like, you have a bare minimum, you have to be in state 2 years to hold elected office, and I did it, and I was in as fast as I could possibly be.
That's awesome. That is literally awesome. So like my first year here, I like probably bit off more than I could chew. I ran for county sheriff that first year for Merrimack County. Yeah. It was fun. Like, I learned a lot about running for office and as an anarchist, I got to say, like, it was a lot more fun than anything because truthfully, like, I don't align perfectly with Republicans, but there's probably a lot more that I would agree with them on, especially when it comes to the Second Amendment and freedom of speech. I don't like to play like party politics for a lot of things, but for sure when it comes to the Democrats, a couple years ago, the only question I was being asked when I was running was, "Hey, what's your stance on abortion?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm running for county sheriff. Like, what do you think that I'm going to be able to do?" But my answer is always just basically the government has no right over your body, but that includes vaccines. Yes, and they hate hearing that. So, I don't think there should be any law regulating the human body, period. I'm very pro-life. Like, I believe, like, abortion is wrong. I also don't believe that there should be laws that dictate morality either. So that's just my opinion. And I know that, like, you are like, you're base as fuck. You're Ron Paul libertarian. You agree, that, like, the law shouldn't basically be legislating morality in a lot of ways. And this is why you've really gotten behind Defend the Guard. Am I right? Like you're a military veteran. So kind of, I guess, tell us about that, your experience and how it got you to where you are today.
So that's actually where all of my political philosophy and everything came from, was like my service. So 9/11 happened when I was in high school. Everybody's in high school. You're trying to figure out what you're going to do when you're going to grow up. And it's just like, well, okay, I guess I like kind of like music. I might get into like, sound engineering, something along those lines. And then like 9/11 happens and I'm like, oh, well, that's what I'm going to go, defend the country, go wherever I need to go. It's like, okay, the enemies, they're in Afghanistan. I was like, okay, cool. And I reached out to recruiters, took the ASVAB. I got a perfect score on the ASVAB. My recruiter it was the Marine Corps at the time, is what I wanted to do. And the guy's like, well, you can do literally any MOS you want. And I was like, well, which one would be the guy who shoots bin Laden? He's like, well, infantry. And I was like,
dude, that is so wild. We have that is so crazy because I got a really high score on the ASVAB too. Like, I wanted to go Intel initially, but I was also like thinking about doing honor guard and stuff like this. And like, you need to be pretty decorated. So I was like, like, what do I need to do? Like, actually, like my family was like a long line of infantrymen, basically. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do infantry. This is basically what my whole family told me to do. And I was very I was an anarchist at the time, but I was also like an oblivious person. Like, I just wanted to get out of my parents' house. They're like, I need to get, some free college. Right. Sure. And but like I could have done almost anything.
Yep.
And actually, the recruiters were like, they actually like obviously lied a lot to help me get into because I had asthma.
Oh shit. Yep. Oh, dude. Yeah. During the recruitment crunches, like especially during the surge, they were like overlooking all kinds of things. It was like
everything.
As long as like you didn't have some kind of felony conviction, they were willing to waive everything else. Like,
but it's wild.
insane.
Like that's like kind of where like you end up in the infantry. Obviously we love guns, so
oh yeah.
Like
oddly enough,
an incentive.
So I come from a family of like my dad's a hardcore lefty union guy. So like I grew up in like a culture where my dad was very anti-gun. So he raised me that way. Like I was being a rebellious teenager, so I was kind of cool with guns anyway, just to be a rebellious. I didn't know shit about them. I honestly never touched a gun until I joined the Marine Corps, which is bizarre.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, like typical like leftist upbringing, but it's like rebellion shit like that. Like I went and shot like well, I didn't shoot a 22. My buddy shot a 22. I wasn't gonna touch it like because my dad was like, would have been pissed when I was like little, right? And
now you like laugh about it, like I couldn't shoot a 22.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah, when I was like 13 or whatever.
Yeah,
like, something like that. And it, like, but whatever. That was like so I'm not gonna touch it. So when I joined the Marine Corps, it's like infantry riflemen. We're learning all kinds of gun stuff right out of the bat, and it's like like you mentioned, the recruiters lie, like and there's a mixture between like lie and them just not understanding the political climate that we were in. So it was like the Iraq War. Like when I joined the delayed entry program, the Iraq War was only like 3 months going, and they're like, "Oh well, this will be over. We're like already in Baghdad. Like this will be over short. It'll be just like the Gulf War. You won't have anything to worry about. You'll go to Afghanistan. You can help find Bin Laden." I was like, "Okay, that's fine. That's cool." Come to find out, like I get to the fleet, my first deployment to Iraq, second deployment to Iraq, and it's like, and it's still going, right? So it's like, after my second deployment, like I'm like, I really need to start paying better attention to like foreign policy, politics at the federal level, like what the hell's going on. So like at the time I considered myself kind of a Democrat because they were the only people that were pushing back against the Iraq War at the time, right? But then you see Ron Paul like debating the neocons on the stage during that presidential debate in 2008, and I was like, this guy, he says everything else that I believe in, right? Like I don't want the government interfering with my life and all that stuff, but then he's also anti-war against everyone else in his party. Like he was a guy standing out on his own, and I'm like, this guy is what I want to be. Like this is my political philosophy. I've never found anybody before him that spoke so true to what I believed, and that's like that guided my entire principles all the way to this day. Like it's never shifted.
That's incredible. And like I'm a huge stan for Ron Paul, obviously. Like obviously all humans are just humans and valuable. He wasn't like a perfect human in some things, but he, for like largely, like I would say I would align with Ron Paul on damn near everything. You know what I mean? And he's a solid guy, advocating against state intervention on pretty much everything. And I think that like that moment actually made him, obviously he stood out, but it also like, I think he doubled down on a lot, you know what I mean? And like, he went from like, okay, like, like we can send people over there, 8 years prior to, no, this needs to end now. We facilitated this. We started this by going over there in Desert Storm and, blowing shit up. And, like Bin Laden straight up wrote that, like the reason he hates America and wants is because of our involvement in Desert Storm and all of these other things. And talk about blowback, people don't like to talk about it, but like 9/11 was something that we instigated and nobody really wants to talk about it. Like, obviously, like we know this, but like you talk to normies, a lot of people like are just completely oblivious, are not aware that like they hate us for our freedom is like the number one thing we were told. Like, and obviously, they say like, weapons of mass destruction as well. Like that's another thing is like, they had WMDs and it turns out all of it's a lie.
Oh yeah. So. And it's like the blowback thing, like that was like poison to say it. When Ron Paul was saying it, that was poison. It was basically, you were victim blaming the people in the World Trade Center Like you're saying, well, you're saying they brought this upon themselves, and it's like, well, they didn't. The Pentagon might have, but not the people in the World Trade Center. And they think that history started on 2001. And it's just like even before like Desert Storm, like us against the Russians, like arming the Taliban against the Russians. And it's not just that. It's like we also pitted like Iran and Iraq against each other. Like it's like, oh, for a while Iraq was our friend because we hated Iran more. And it's like this goes back like decades. Like, and it actually like this it traces all the way back to like the end of World War II. Like when the US, like there's crap to do with like Syria and stuff like that, where they wanted us to help like mediate. Like after the end of World War II, there was like organizations in the Middle East, like these newfound countries that were trying to come up, like trusted the United States because we were the unknown. We weren't like the European conquerors and all that, but now we have come to be worse than any of the European conquerors had ever been. That just took place in the last century.
And I love Scott Horton, and like I've read his books and stuff like that. But I think that like one thing he had mentioned in his books too, in Enough Already, was within 3 months of 9/11, we actually had the number of Taliban reduced to a number that could like all of them could have fit on one 757 airplane. And that's crazy to me. It's like you're talking like there was less than 300 Taliban in the entire world. Or maybe it was Al Qaeda. I think it was Al Qaeda.
Yeah.
Either way. So there's less than 300 in the entire world. And now, because of our involvement overseas, there's significantly more than 50,000. There's probably closer to 100,000 at this point.
Oh yeah.
They use us as a recruitment tool.
Yep.
And this is how it happens. Like we'll fund them, we'll train them, we'll give them money.
Yep.
Then we do something that pisses them off. They turn against us. We start bombing their families, and then they start using that as just a recruitment tool to go against.
And it's like, and it's more than just Al Qaeda. So it's like you have Al Qaeda, you have ISIS, you have the Houthis, you have Hamas, like Hezbollah, Hamas, like everything's like. And then it's like, oh, and like you listen to the propagandists out of like DC and all the news media. It's like everything's Iranian backed. Everything's Iranian backed, like hyphenated, whatever it is. Like a Iranian backed militia attacked a base in Jordan. It's like, well, that's really far from Iran. Like, how did that happen? It's like, oh no, it was actually an Iraqi militia that were pissed off that we're still in Iraq to this day.
Right. Like, well, this is what's crazy is like, obviously, it's kind of, it blows my mind. Like I made a post the other day. It was a completely troll post. I don't know if you saw, like I was trolling Democrats. I wore like a white dudes for Harris shirt. And I said,
I saw that shirt. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Republicans actually like obviously they got super triggered. Like I got a bunch of MAGA people on my thing, like oh, you can't do this. And I was like, you guys don't understand. Like this is actually pretty funny. Like you guys are buying into this bait. Like I knew you would. But like it's kind of wild because like I mentioned to like one, Trump enacted more gun control than Joe Biden did, right?
That's correct.
And also like Trump obviously he like tried to facilitate getting us out of Afghanistan, but for some reason a lot of people believe that when we did pull out of Afghanistan a couple months after he left office, that that was us withdrawing from all overseas conflict. Like they aren't aware that we were still at war with 6 other countries that are still happening, like Yemen. We're still like facilitating genocide in Yemen, right? And
in Syria, in Syria. So we have so to dovetail kind of with the defend the guard, like I know like we're going to get to that eventually, but it's like so there's an air base that's in northern Jordan that's on the border of Syria and Iraq, like in that little triangle there. That was the one that was under attack like earlier last year or this year. And we lost, there was like 3 Army reservists died. And there was like over 20 something Army National Guardsmen from across like 4 different states all got wounded. That air base's singular purpose is to basically blockade a road that cuts up from Iraq into Syria. And it's all part of this like ISIS inherent resolve nonsense that it's just like, this anti-ISIS, but sort of also anti-Bashar al-Assad in Syria, like nonsense. And our guys are getting wounded over there, and they're in like Jordan's like our ally, but in Iraq is technically our ally because we help facilitate like their new government, their new democracy. And but the Iraqi militia don't want us there. Half of like the Iraqi army and militia went and joined ISIS when we left, and they took all of the gear that we gave them with them. Like this is something that people are just disconnected from. They think like ISIS came from nowhere. Like it's like, oh, it's just like Al Qaeda 2.0. It's like, no, it's a new beast that is like the, you know, the culmination of all the material and all of the training that we gave to the Iraqi army, and they're just pissed off at us. It's like, oh, thank God they left in like 2013, whenever we pulled out the first time, and then we had to go back in, and it's like
this is so funny because like they think that like we're making such progress, right? We're establishing a democracy over there, and how long did it take for Afghanistan to be taken back over?
Like a week. Like less
literally
than a week.
like a couple days. It was insane, right? So like all of these 20 years that we've spent over there, what the fuck, right?
Like $1 trillion, like all the lives. Like it's like we have our service members, and then there's just like an order of magnitude, like the Afghani population that we'll never know. We're like just snuffed out by like collateral damage or any like follow-on effects from us just devastating their economy from invasion. Like you know, the Taliban was like, if I remember correctly, they were like banning poppy production and all that stuff. Then we rolled in there, and then like the CIA was like looking the other way because they wanted them to produce poppies. And then
I think we gave them some money too.
To do
like,
yes,
that's what's fucking crazy. It's like, what?
It's bizarre. Like that's like one of those conspiracy like lines, right? Where it's just like, well, it's like the Taliban banned the production of poppies, and then we go in there and we help them do it. Like that's weird. Like
so crazy, man.
What a weird coincidence that the
this
CIA
gets us to
them.
like where we're at today too. So like obviously like I'm a huge advocate for Defend the Guard. I've for a couple of years now. You know, I actually missed out last year. But I've pretty much every year for the last 4 or 5 years put together like an anti-war rally at a capital somewhere. And I think actually my first year here, I had a anti-war rally I put together at City of Concord, and you came to that. That was the first time I actually, you know, saw you.
We met. I think it was the very first time I met you.
And there wasn't like a huge crowd there or anything. It was like 25 people, maybe tops. But we had like some good speakers or whatever. But that was like obviously to help promote Defend the Guard. And then within like a year and a half of that too, like Defend the Guard made some pretty big waves. And I think you're one of the biggest people to thank, you and Derek Prue.
Definitely, you know, Derek.
Derek does a ton of work for Defend the Guard and with AFP and all this stuff. But Defend the Guard is a great, it's a fantastic concept because ultimately they do not have the authority to send National Guardsmen overseas, and we need to bring them back. Like constitutionally, it is against the Constitution to send National Guard overseas without an actual declaration of war. That's the premise of Defend the Guard. So I guess like, you know, you're a veteran, you've gotten to this point, you're very knowledgeable in what's going on overseas. So I guess kind of tell us like how Defend the Guard came to your attention and how because you helped get it passed in the State House just the other year.
Did what I could.
I guess tell us about that.
Yeah, so the first time I heard about it was actually Derek Prue. We were doing like, it was a policy brief. You mentioned NHLA earlier. These organizations, they host things like they'll be coming up again in like next month, where it's like you know, brainstorming for bills to file. Like and so like 4 people don't file the same damn bill. We try to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So we all, it's like, okay, well, you're going to be the prime, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he gets up there and he talks about Defend the Guard. First time I've ever heard of this thing, and I'm like, holy crap. That's like, because foreign policy was always like kind of my thing. That's why I got interested in politics in the first place. But it's like, okay, state level politics, I'm not going to deal with foreign policy. And it's like, but wait, here's your in, right? And I'm like, this is amazing. So I wanted in, and I asked Derek, I was like, let me be the prime sponsor on this. He's like, dude, you're like a freshman. Like, I don't, like, he didn't even know who I was. It's like, you might be a lunatic. Like, there are people that are in the state, because the State House allows, like, you just need $2 and like a lot of grit to basically get elected in this state. There's a lot of loony people that can get it.
Right. Well, you replace somebody who is based as fuck too, right?
So. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Herschel Nunez is my idol. Like, he was my predecessor. He taught me everything I know, and he like left the state, but that's neither here nor there. I love Herschel.
Anyways.
But so Derek brought me up there. He's like, I'll let you be like, you know, we have an idea of who's going to be the prime sponsor, but we're looking for co-sponsors, and we want veterans. Like, everyone on the bill is going to be veterans. And he actually managed to get, there was a guy, Joshua Adjutant, was a Democrat on the other side, who was an Iraq war veteran. And he's the Democrat co-sponsor on this bill, which is unique for New Hampshire, because every other state that's filed this, for whatever reason, the Democrats don't want to touch it. They used to be the anti-war party. That's gone. That ship has sailed.
Yep.
Right. So now it's like Republicans are now like the anti-war party for the most part, except in certain states where it's just like the Republican speaker won't let it come to the floor, et cetera, for whatever reason, probably Raytheon connections. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have base systems right here in New Hampshire, right? Like, so
yes, we do.
This is like they did not like defend the guard bill at all. And I know that they sent a lot of opposition to the state house to fight against this thing.
Oh yeah.
But,
they tapped those guys like, but it's like, so we ended up doing that. We got like, all those guys on there. Sadly, like Joshua Adjutant had like an accident at work. So he had to like drop out of the state house and all that stuff, deal with that. So we lost the Democrat co-sponsor. So through Derek Prue, I actually reached out to a couple of the other Democrats, like the activists, like Ellen Reed is one. She's like hardcore progressive, but like really anti-war. Like she's
Jonah, right?
Jonah
got on
and Jonah Wheeler, like the two of them. And both of them are like, we'll help you like rally the progressives. Cause like there are like, even though there's like a lot of progressives in the state house, there's a chunk of them that are like, they won't bend the knee to their leadership. They're going to be like, we believe in anti-war stuff. So they would help. So without their help, it would not have passed the House because there was we lost 26 Republicans on the vote. And with a tied House, like basically virtually tied of like 200 about, losing that many is a problem. And but then we gained 22 Democrats and then 2 of the independents voted with us. So thanks to Ellen Reed and Jonah Wheeler, the Democrats, we passed it in New Hampshire. So it's like the first time it was passed in a bipartisan fashion with like not just like, there's people that actually believe in the bill. It wasn't like horse trading or anything like that. They believed in the principles.
Right. And I remember like just when you guys were even trying to bring it to the table, they had so many 5-star generals coming up there trying to like talk against it.
Yeah.
Like it was really a challenge to even get it to the point where it was heard. I know that.
Well, getting it. Our committee was a pain in the ass because the adjutant general, the guy who runs the New Hampshire National Guard, and his assistant general, Colonel, whatever. I don't want to name drop and whatever.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah.
Those guys like they're going to show up and they oppose it. And like the worst part about all of this is there's an organization that's created by RSA called the State Veterans Advisory Committee. It's this organization that's it has like 20 voting members, and all of them are like the chairs of like the VFW, the American Legion, the Marine Corps League, like these big veteran organizations, and they all opposed Defend the Guard. So now I've made it a point to be like there at all these meetings now to just see what is going on. And when I tried to get them to change their recommendation on the bill, it's pretty much like the adjutant general's in the back and he puts his thumb on the scales and basically implies it's like, it's the same threat, right? Like, well, it puts the funding at risk. And he says that, and all these like boomer, like vet guys from like the Vietnam era are like, I don't know what it is with the Vietnam guys, but they're just like, well, we can't cut any money from the military.
If there should be anybody that should be 100% for the Defend the Guard bill, it should be the Vietnam guys. But like, here's the thing is like, there's like obviously like an old saying, you should help veterans by not creating more of them.
Yes.
And I don't understand like why so many people that are like from that like boomer era of the veterans, they're not like getting it. Like, okay, yes, the funding will be affected. Like, and that's part of the problem is that our military is overfunded, right? And they don't want to see that. They think it's going to result in us getting 9/11 2.0 or something like that, right? But what they don't understand is the reason that we're overfunded is because we're overseas.
Yes.
If we had our National Guardsmen in New Hampshire, not leaving the state, right? Like we're obviously saving money by not sending them over there, but we are significantly safer as a country and as a state by having our armed forces here at home, protecting ourselves. And that's the, you know what I mean? That's where they're at.
So I don't want to put like a psychologist hat on, but I've been like floating this idea out to other like vets, like just like, cause this is what I think happened with the Vietnam guys, specifically just them. Like they went off on their deployment. And when they came back to the media and all of the population spitting on them for what they went through. So like, not only did they probably hated the government for drafting them at first, but then when they came back, the enemy that was directly in front of them was the quote unquote anti-war hippies. right? So what I think happened is it's almost like a Stockholm thing where they embraced the government because the government is telling them what you did was, it was patriotic. It was necessary to the mission. You were fighting the godless commies or whatever like the lies they tell them, the propaganda.
And the money they give them too. Let's be real.
Yeah. And then I think they like ran out with like open arms to like the VA. And then they because back in the day, like there was Smedley Butler, like basically pre-World War I, like had the VFW as like an anti-war organization. It was like pushing back against the war state. And then World War II came along. And I think, looking back, it's like people see that as probably like justified in some ways. Like, it's like, who knows? Like it's more debatable than like the Vietnam War, which was a lie. And like the Gulf War was unnecessary. And like, Iraq was absolutely a lie. So like, there's these ones that are clean cut, absolute lies. And then you have the World War II, which is like arguably justifiable. So like that anti-war sentiment melts away because everybody sees it as like fighting like the evils of like, the Nazis or whoever, or bombing Pearl Harbor, et cetera. Like, whatever you may think, like the outcome of the world. But it's like, so that all washed away. So then the VFW has been more or less, I think, now just like part of the machine. Like they're part of the war machine. Like when I went and spoke in front of an American Legion in Nashua, trying to get them to endorse Defend the Guard, one of the only question I got, besides there was one about funding, but then the only question that was like unique that I've ever heard before was, would this affect our member base if we can't get more veterans into our meetings? So they were basically worried that because we're not going into war anymore, that their membership,
they're going to like lose membership.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, wild. I didn't know how to answer that question. I was like, shouldn't that be your mission statement?
Isn't that a good thing? Yeah. Shouldn't that be like part of the disclosure? Like, we don't want more of this.
Yeah. These guys are coming back broken. And it's like, why wouldn't you want that to stop? Like, I don't know. That was the first time I've ever heard a question of that caliber, and that blew me away. I was like,
that is insane.
I was like, yeah, of course it's gonna hurt. Like, I didn't know. I didn't want to. I was like, it's like I felt a little triggered. I was like,
well, so it got. Yeah. So the Defend the Guard bill, like you were obviously you got it to the point, bipartisan, obviously, to pass the House, and then it went to the Senate, and the Senate pretty much killed it, right? Like
oh God.
Yes. I don't know what even happened there because there's actually like also like there is a free stater, maybe two in maybe I think this might be the only free stater that's in the Senate, state Senate. Keith Murphy, right?
Yeah. Keith Murphy.
But then you have people like Pearl. I mean, I'm not trying to like. I guess I already name dropped. I've talked to Pearl. Like me and him met when I was running for office.
Yeah.
But like I know that he was like very against the Defend the Guard bill as well. Yeah. And there was a couple other Republicans, and they basically shut the bill down. So
I think Jeb Bradley wanted it dead more than anybody, and then Regina Birdsell. I'll throw all these people under the bus because I think they all need to be. Jeb Bradley's not running again, but I think some of these other people need to be primaried. So we took it to the Senate, and just like always, we did our committee hearing, and it was like. Global War on Terrorist veterans, even new ones that didn't testify last time, are showing up. There's a guy and we're all like enlisted men, right? Like we're all like sergeants and below. Like we've been there, we've been in the dirt, we've kicked doors in, and these guys are just saying like this war machine crap needs to stop. And it's the same thing as always. Like all of those people show up and testify. Then at the very end, the Senate decided they made it their own little personal rule that they were going to let the Adjutant General of the National Guard go last. And he talked about funding, and you just see like the pearl clutching of the senators, like, oh my God, $400 million. Oh God. And it's like, so then that goes like, they don't even debate it. When the thing comes up for them to do the final vote, like a week later, when they reconvene, there's no debate, no discussion. It was obviously done off camera, like out of the eye of the public, where they just decided they were going to let the Democrat guy, Lou D'Alessandro, make the motion for interim study, which is like death with dignity, interim study, and unanimous, no debate. Unanimous. And then it comes to the Senate floor, and we begged Keith Murphy to call a roll call. The problem with the Senate is they need two people to do any kind of roll call, and they all look out for each other, even across the aisle. Like the Democrats are not going to like help the Republicans hold other Republicans to account because they don't want to be backstabbed later in the same fashion. You would think that they would be trying to snipe each other for bad votes, but it's weird. It's like this bizarre ecosystem that the damn Senate has that I'll never understand. But it's like Keith Murphy could not get a second on that roll call. So we don't know. except for him. He's the only one who went up after the fact. If you listen to the thing, you can hear him say no, but everyone else said yes. So any of these other people like Bill Gannon or wherever else said like, oh, well, I would have voted for it. It's like, well, I heard one voice say no, and it was Keith Murphy's voice.
Yeah.
So no one else said
all
no.
of them. Get rid of all of them. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah,
clean the board, man.
Amen.
Let's flip it over.
Or we could dial up the pressure, right? So we have like another really great Liberty candidate running from the House is Emily Phillips. She's running in District 23. Great. And she's going up against Bill Gannon. I've heard through another senator that Bill Gannon was kind of friendly to the Defend the Guard, but he didn't vote for it. So, and there's no roll call. So how the hell do I know?
Right.
We might as well. What's weird about this whole thing is like Defend the Guard not getting a roll call pissed off so many organizations. It actually brought this coalition together amongst groups that don't even give a damn about foreign policy. Like Rebuild New Hampshire is about medical freedom. They jumped in to help us. And like, it's like, we're going to back Emily Phillips just because we want roll calls in the Senate, because she could Melissa Blasek couldn't get roll calls on any of her health freedom bills. The same thing. And it's just like, this is just more of the same. We need to stop this. We need transparency. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like what it comes down to, man. Like it's very, it's phenomenal. We were able to do like a lot of cool things over the last few years. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like when it comes to Defend the Guard, obviously there's probably going to be another push to get this back in.
Yes.
This is something that like we can't just stop on just because it didn't pass the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But this election cycle is going to tell us a lot. And I'm really hoping that, maybe some more free staters will pick up a few more seats, that will kind of, and maybe we'll have some free staters on the other side of the fence too.
I
that
hope
are Democrats,
I hope so. I would love to work with more like good Democrats. It's like 90% of them are literal like NPCs. Like if you ask them like what their opinion on something is, they'll look over at like Matt Wilhelm, who's like the minority leader.
Right. And it's what they do. They hold the like little signs up too, like how they're voting, right? And this is what they okay. I guess this is how we're rolling,
on everything. Like, what's some stupid crap that passed that the Democrats let pass? This is like anti-liberty no question asked, but it's also anti-Democrat platform. They want cannabis to be treated by open container laws. So if you have cannabis not in its original packaging on your person while you're driving, you are now subject to the same open container laws.
You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah. And the Democrats voted to get it through.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane. Oh my God.
Stupid.
Forrest Mommy asked, do we have any DSA Dems in New Hampshire?
Oh, the socialists?
I'm pretty sure there's some
Democrat socialists.
Probably a few.
I think Ellen Reed might be an actual registered socialist. I'm not sure. She's a great ally.
She also helped defend the Guard bill.
Yeah, right. So that's the thing. Like there are people that in my party that are like even free stater types that are like, I'm never going to work with a Democrat ever. And I'm over here like, I will work with whoever if we can get crap done that's good for liberty. Like whether it be like, police accountability, like qualified immunity reform, like whatever it may be, I'm willing to work across the aisle with like the most rabid socialist on that subject. It doesn't mean I'm going to be like, buddies or best friends or whatever. Even like I can even be friends with these people as long as like they're not trying to like corrupt anything, I suppose. But like having heated debates are fine, but it's like,
I think that like qualified immunity is a good place to go too for like something about part. I don't think that like right now we're in the spot where like it'd be able to pass on at least the Republican side. Even Democrats will probably be on board with it. Some of them. But if you think about it, like, I've been involved with LP for a while, and I know even in like Riverside, California, they were able to change over their publicly funded emergency services to being like a private retirement situation. And that was Jeff Hewitt. He was one of the first libertarians elected as county supervisor out in California. He facilitated that.
Okay.
And I've known him for a while, but he switched that over, and they're doing very well with that. Like the emergency services folk, like the fire department, the EMS, and the police officers, they're actually like, they are going to have better retirement benefits when they're done.
That's great.
And this is something that I had as part of my county sheriff platform a couple years ago, and I didn't call it like, like privatizing, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like said like sustainable retirement for EMS, because like that's what it is. Like, let's be honest with it. Like, so for every one police officer that you have, you're funding almost 3. It's like 2.7 police officers, because of the retirement benefits, because of the lawsuits that are involved with every police department ever. And that's partly because of qualified immunity. Like, like people aren't being able to be held personally liable, and departments aren't held personally liable. It basically, you sue the department, you're still paying for part of the lawsuit that you just won because you're a taxpayer. Yep. So
no matter what, you're on. The
so like it comes down to like, our taxes are going up because of these emergency services. That's definitely something that we should probably hit on. I don't know how close we are with it, but
I would know. I mean, I'm not, the finance stuff is like a lot like outside my wheelhouse, but like there are like big, like looming debts. So like there's the biggest threat right now to like the financial security of the state is a lot of this massive pension debt, exactly as you described, for like firemen, whoever, like state employees, like this. And it's out there. And like, the problem is like sometimes like Sununu even sometimes just brushes it off as like, oh, well, it's fine. It's fine. But you got guys like Dan McGuire, who's like Free State, like in that group as well. Like he's out there, like he's the dude saying like the dude, this chicken's going to come home to roost. And it's like, especially when like, it's like, I don't think you realize that like all the boomers, like a huge chunk of our workforce is all going to retire basically within the same decade. And we're going to be on the hook for a crap load of money. And I don't know how you expect, like the only way to pay it off, right, is to increase taxes. It's it, or absolutely gut other programs, like whether it's like the hopefully the college system.
Diego says Tom Mannion's a gangster.
Oh, Diego, he's another guy. Defend the Guard, a massive advocate. He's actually out in other states trying to push it through other legislatures. So if it like we got like Derek Pruz, like the New Hampshire guy, Diego's the national level guy.
Yes, absolutely. And so that kind of like brings me to like where I kind of like wanted to mention this, because obviously like I am elected to the Libertarian National Committee, and in the Libertarian Party, people have a really hard time accepting that there are libertarians that are elected in other parties. All right, you are without a doubt a Ron Paul libertarian, man. Like, I've known you for long enough. Like there are like probably close to 100 state reps in New Hampshire that call themselves New Hampshire or that call themselves New Hampshire Free Staters and libertarians, right? Voluntarists, anarchists, voluntarists. There are a ton of them elected to the state house in New Hampshire. Yep. The Libertarian Party has a very hard time accepting that libertarians are running as other parties, right? Yeah. And like, I have no problem with this. I know you people. You guys are real libertarians. But like, well, okay, there's only one real libertarian and it's me. But like,
of course.
Right. But at the end of the day, like we have so many elected libertarians. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because absolutely, like, people are insane with this. Like we have to like understand like the Libertarian Party has a place. And we are not in a place where we can win elections right now. No. This is just a fact. So we should be embracing that there's a lot of libertarians running as Republicans and Democrats in New Hampshire and actually winning and actually passing bills that are facilitating liberty in our lifetime, at least in New Hampshire.
I wholeheartedly agree. And like, it's one of those things like, so number one, if you're not in New Hampshire, you're literally doing nothing. That's just you're gonna have to accept that. Like Dave Smith, I don't know what to tell you, bud. You're not in New Hampshire, you're not doing anything.
Oh God.
But
don't make Dave hate me. Come on.
I'm kidding. I just like to bust all those guys' balls. Like I get it. Like Spike Cohen, like all these guys, you can't necessarily move. You have roots, and that's something that like some of the other guys in the Free State have mentioned. It's like it's not easy to just pick up and go. For me, honestly, my move was super simple because I moved from Chelmsford, Massachusetts, like 5 miles north as the crow flies. Didn't uproot my life, like it wasn't a huge thing for me. So like, I can't just say it's like, oh, it's easy. It's like, it was easy for me. It's not easy for everybody. I do like to bust everybody else's balls that are outside of New Hampshire. Be like, you're not doing anything, but it's like, but there are the people that are super, I don't know how to describe it. without using the word autism, but it's like
so what it is. So.
It is what it is. It's like, well, you don't have a libertarian title. You're not a libertarian. You're not a libertarian. You're not in the Libertarian Party. And they just like get stuck in that mode where it's like, you're not a libertarian. You don't want to call it. It's like, okay, well, if you don't believe that, like me voting, like being one of 13 people that voted against some stupid resolution to, do away with Social Security, like, I don't know, like how more libertarian I can be for something.
I know. Like, it's really pretty crazy.
I can't pass your litmus test because I don't have an L next to my name.
Can you imagine, like, though, like telling someone like you that you're not a real libertarian?
It's
because, but you're actually doing things that are facilitating liberty in our lifetime, that are very libertarian ideals, libertarian based entirely.
Yeah.
Like, it's just wild to me that, like, just because you have an R next to your name, people are saying that you're not a real libertarian.
I know.
That blows my mind, man. It really does.
Yep. It's a little frustrating, but at the same time, I just sit back and I'm like, well, I'm doing stuff. So I don't really care what they think. I just feel that I wish that they took their energy and used it in a more productive manner than complaining on Twitter. Like for example, Diego's in the chat, right? So Diego, if you are one of those people that complains on Twitter, link up with Diego. He will get you on a phone bank where you will harass people like me in a committee, that are in a committee that are going to vote on Defend the Guard. And there is a guy, like, I have proof positive, there is a representative that was a Democrat in my committee who changed his vote the day of because he got harassed the week prior from phone calls from activists that were helping with Diego to make sure that, like, he knew that there was backing behind this, and that everybody calling him was like a veteran or somebody super interested or had family overseas or something like that. That's all it takes. If you want to make a difference, it's that small. And it's sitting on Twitter and complaining that, like, people with a Republican title aren't libertarians. That's not helping anybody.
I agree completely. And Force Mommy says they're starting to Defend the Guard in Colorado.
Good.
Hopefully, Diego and the crew will help get behind that, and we can get some good motions going. And I lived in Colorado for over 15 years. There's a very soft spot in my heart for Colorado because my family lives there, almost my entire family. I go back, visit there at least twice a year minimum. And there's a pretty good libertarian party out there too. And I gotta say, like, I could see something like what we're doing in New Hampshire. And I'm not saying that, like, that Colorado has anything like the Free State Project, because they're not going to get 100 elected libertarians in office. It's just not going to happen there. But, like, if they could get,
don't have our legislature, like, they don't have the structure that we do. It's not as approachable. It's just not possible. Like, I'm not over here because, like, home field advantage or whatever. Like, I'm in New Hampshire, but it's not just because of where it is. It's because of the structure of our government.
Right? The it's constitutionally different. I will say that I'm just, like, throwing it out there. I really hope that they have success with this out there. I would love to see Colorado, like, also being one of the states that lead the front on this. Obviously New Hampshire's built different. It just is. We have 400 state reps. Every state rep represents literally, like, maybe 2,500 people.
I think it's like 3,500. 3,500 is about the math. So.
And whereas, like, when I lived in California for a couple of years too, like, one state rep represented, like, close to 500,000 people. So, when you're talking about this to people, we have over 400 state reps. It's literally one of the most represented states per tax citizen in the world. There's like a country out there, like maybe one or two countries that have better representation per tax citizen, I think. But those are, like, very small countries. And we're talking about, like, whereas, like, we represent one for every 3,500 people, essentially. You're literally electing your neighbor, someone that you could know and probably do know and can know. Whereas, like, these are approachable people, and they're actually representing the interests of the people in their area too. So we are built different. That's just how we are. And not we're the only state that this happens in. Like, there's no other state that's even close to this kind of
so, like, that not only is it, like, that part really great, but, like, if you want to know the guy, but if you want to be the guy, the barrier for entry is so low. Like me, for when I came in, my town had just broken off from Hudson because they did redistricting, and they had empty seats, like, literal, like, people, they were clamoring to find people to fill these seats. And that's across the state in both parties. So like we're supposed to say like, oh, run as a Republican because I'm a Republican, whatever. I don't actually care. If you live in a blue town and you are liberty oriented, find out through the local Dems, do they even have people to run for the seats? Because when deadline hit, like it was like a month ago when we had like filing deadline, there was, I think it was 20 something solid blue districts didn't have somebody file. So the party had to appoint somebody. And the only way that the party has the authority to put anybody in that way is if they didn't have somebody fill the seat by deadline. So all we needed was somebody registered as a Democrat in any of those towns, and they could have put their name in the ballot. And then the party couldn't put like a quote unquote real Democrat in that spot.
Yeah.
And these are solid blue towns. So whoever's on that ballot is getting voted in.
And I know that there are quite a few free staters that are running as Democrats this year. So hopefully we'll get a couple of them in there. We'll be able to kind of like move forward. Truthfully, like the liberty movement is so much bigger than any kind of political party. That's kind of the point, right? This is the point of this whole thing, is that, liberty in our lifetime is not achievable by partisan politics.
Nope.
We are a very big tent, and while we might disagree on some things, when it comes to like individual freedom, the Free State Project is that's what we represent, right? We represent the individual. You move here, you try to get stuff done and decentralize things down to the individual scale.
Yep.
That's where we're at. So
I am happy to like debate like the finer points of like whatever the like the differences that we have, whether it's like abortion or something like that, where it's like even in our own cluster, like that's something that's great to do at like Pork Fest, right? You just sit down around a campfire and you can hash it out. It's like from a libertarian perspective, this like life or whatever choice or whatever, and you can argue from those two different directions. And I would love to get to a point where it's like that's the only debates we're having at the State House is like we've solved all the liberty issues. Like there's no taxation, there's no any like threat of government violence for doing whatever you want with your own life, and then we're just doing like the libertarian arguments that everybody has at the like across the nation. Right.
Pork Fest is a great place for those arguments to happen too. By the way, I think that like it's kind of a microcosm for the liberty movement here in New Hampshire. People should definitely visit Pork Fest at least once and just hang out there and see what it's about, because you really do have the full spectrum of libertarianism at Pork Fest. Am I right? Like there are people that are on the left, people on the right.
Yep.
Last year we had, quite a few like RFK stands there. I mean, they're there this year too.
They flooded the place last year. It was crazy.
Yeah.
RFK stand.
When he was speaking. But like ultimately, we are doing a pretty good job here. And I got to say, like, I really have hope that, our liberty people will keep the House and we don't lose too many seats. I know there's a couple people that aren't running again.
Yeah.
But I hope that like we'll gain a couple more in other
we have
areas.
A lot of new like upstarts that are coming in, first timers. Like the guys from NHLA and across the Free State Project did a great job recruiting people. So like we're losing the Leckuses, who are like icons. They've been there for they've only been in the State House a little bit, but they've been activists for like ever. And they've been in the state since I think like the 70s or something. Yeah. So like they've been like staunch liberty people the entire time they've lived in the state. And they're finally stepping down. Like they're going to go, golden years type stuff, like actually get some time together as a couple, right? Instead of like, slaving away. But it's good because they're handing the reins off. And we got a new crop coming up. So,
I mean, there's a couple like big races coming up too. Like obviously Lily is running again
in Congress.
That's that's big. Hopefully Lily Tang Williams, if people can get behind her campaign. I'm a huge fan of hers. Emily Phillips, you already mentioned, running for state Senate. Like we need more, people. She is a libertarian.
Yes,
through and through,
without question. A+ rated NHLA. Yep.
Yeah, NHLA. And if people don't know what NHLA is, like maybe you can explain it more than me. But like they're a phenomenal organization here in New Hampshire.
Also, it's like uniquely New Hampshire. Like we have a New Hampshire NHLA is New Hampshire Liberty Alliance. It's an entire. It's a volunteer effort where they get a whole bunch of liberty type people that are completely clued in on what is and isn't liberty, and they go bill by bill. Like last year, I think we had like 2,000 bills across the 2 years, and these guys will go through every single one of them and yay, nay, like in its degrees too. So it's not like pro liberty, negative liberty. It's like pro liberty plus 10 or something like that. And and then they use that to calculate grades for all the roll calls that we do at the State House. And it's like incredible. After every year they go through and they compile this list and they give us all grades, like A plus all the way down to constitutional threat, which is like all of the Democrats and one Republican are a constitutional threat.
And you are an A plus, sir.
I am an A plus.
You are. Didn't you like rank like at the top?
I got 100 this year. Last year I voted against one thing that I regret because like so there's a debate also amongst libertarians about property rights versus like contracts and stuff like that. So there's a whole thing. It's like, I should be allowed to do with my property anything I want. However, we also believe in local control. But then there's like a libertarian counter argument where it's like, well, local control is local tyranny. And then we get into these kind of debates. So I've come back around to the full on, like, if I want to build a nuclear silo on my property, I should be allowed to do it.
Speaking of nuclear silos, when are we going to get a bill passed, or are you going to sponsor a bill for recreational nukes?
Recreational nukes. Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Seabrook Power Plant, but yeah.
We could do that too, but I would love to see a bill for recreational nukes come through. Just saying. So
I'll make an amendment to the power plant bill.
There you go. Yes, there you go. There we go. So I don't even know what bill's going through about the power plant, to be honest with you, but
yeah. I know they want to do the power plant. I don't know. Like the problem with that is it's all federal regulation. So like we run into this crap all the time where it's like, oh, we want to do this. It's like, oh, but you know, the federal the nuclear regulatory committee like won't let you do it. And it's like,
are they trying to add another nuclear power plant here?
They've been trying to do that for a long time, like double the size of Seabrook. Cause like,
it's so crazy because like the one we have right now, like 90% of the energy goes to other states, right?
Yep. Net exporter. Yeah. But it's like, but it's one of those things where it's like we're net exporting. So like we're getting leached on by all the commies around us. And then they won't allow us to get like natural gas piped up through their land. So like there's natural gas just sitting in like Pennsylvania that we can't get because it won't come through New York or Massachusetts or Vermont. They refuse to allow.
That is insane. That is so insane.
But they're happy to take our nuclear.
They're so happy to take our energy because they need it.
Yeah, they're awful.
That is so crazy, dude.
I can't hate those states enough.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you came from one of the worst. So Massachusetts is horrible, especially like with the new gun law that they're trying to pass right now. Which basically just redefines assault rifle in a way that's like worse than the ATF does. Yeah. You know, and like I don't know,
it like accidentally like bans like all 3D printers as well, like through extension. It's absolutely crazy, like what that law is going to do.
Yeah, which by the way, if anybody's watching or wants to get the word out to people in Massachusetts, there is a huge rally happening next Saturday down at the state capitol down there to fight back against this. And I do think there should be a lot of people from our region, New Hampshire, Maine, all these people fighting back against it too. Because truthfully, like what happens in Massachusetts, like I hate to say, like they're our next door neighbors. Yeah. I don't think there's obviously no threat of that happening here now because
we have Democrats that vote pro-gun in New Hampshire. So like guns are very safe in New Hampshire.
However, you know, they are so close and there's a lot of people from Massachusetts that regularly move up here. We should be trying to fight back against these horrible gun laws down there too. And obviously we need to fight for freedom everywhere. But it is pretty nice to live in New Hampshire. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
although that kind of rally might be a good recruiting place.
Yeah, it would be a great recruiting place. I gotta say, like, you know, we want liberty in a lifetime. You know, but I think mine is primarily focused on where I live, which everyone's should be. And New Hampshire is they're kicking ass, dude. People like you are making this a great place to live. And I certainly appreciate you. I gotta say, like, we were talking about maybe having you on the other night, and you were at a Slipknot show.
I was.
So, how did that go, by the way?
Yeah, that was really good. They played, it was all of their first album, and then a couple of like the other deep cuts from the same era. Like Corey Taylor gets out there and he's just like, he's like, you're not going to hear one song newer than 1999. And like, I cheer. And like two of the people that I came with that were like, they're like more recent Slipknot fans are like, oh, I don't know if I know any of the old stuff.
Well, I've played a festival with Corey Taylor with
Oh,
Stone
no shit.
Sour, before, and he's literally one of the nicest human beings I've ever met.
That's awesome.
But like you're a metalhead through and through.
Yeah.
I know that you are a fan of like the Emo Caucus because you hung out at the Emo Hub almost for all of Porkfest. Like you came to our events and you started mosh pits in the Emo Hub, and like
Owl City actually.
Owl City too. Yeah, we have a mosh pit to Fireflies by Owl City.
We did have a mosh pit to Fireflies. Yeah,
dude, that I totally forgot about that. I can't believe I even did that.
Yeah, that was great.
I started like busting out Fireflies right in the middle of New Metal Night. And,
yeah, it was like after Hatebreed, and you said
right
like
Hatebreed,
this next song's like the hardest song I'm gonna play all night, and I was like, what the hell? And you just like Fireflies, and it was just too funny to not mosh to.
that was such a good time, man. Porkfest was fun, and we've already got our site planned for next year, so it's gonna be a really good time. So
I'll be there again all week, so it'll be fun. You got to bring back New Metal Night. We got to do more karaoke. Like anything at the pavilion you can book. Hell yes.
Yes, absolutely. And hopefully it doesn't rain as much. We had a lot of rain this year, but we'll see.
Well, it went from 90. Like, you guys showed up, I think, midweek, right? Is that when you guys got up there?
I got there like on Wednesday.
Okay.
I set up my tent Tuesday.
Yep.
I wasn't there Monday at all. But things really got going on Wednesday. Yeah, for sure.
That's kind of like when the rain came. Like before that, it was like 95 degrees and they opened that gross ass pool that's up there. Like, and they're like, I think they just felt bad because it was like so friggin' hot, and they said it was going to be closed all summer. So they opened it, and it's just like, well, this was probably a mistake, but I jumped in it anyway. I didn't care.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you got checked for like tetanus or whatever.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, all right. But not trying to scare anybody. Like, just if you go to Porkfest, just like if you can, avoid the pool.
Yeah, avoid the pool. They might clean it next year. I don't know. I feel like maybe it was one of those things like we're libertarians. No one's going to complain that it's like gross. Nobody cares.
Right.
So,
well, we're kind of wrapping up on the hour, and I could talk to you for literally hours. So we'll definitely have to have you on the show again.
Yeah.
But for now, tell us like where we can find you so that they can follow like what you're up to. And tell us like who I guess we should be supporting going into the 2022 election. If people can support your campaign, that would be amazing. Maybe name drop some other candidates that they should be supporting or maybe sending their money to or their love to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, go on.
So there's a couple like, so for me, it's Mannion, MANNION, the number 4 NH on Twitter. That's the primary thing I use. Like my Facebook's kind of just for boomers. From my town, but the key races, without question, Emily Phillips for Senate is the most important race in the state right now. Like Congress is great, like whatever you want to do for president, do whatever the hell you want. But honestly, if you are in New Hampshire, if you aren't even in New Hampshire, donate to Emily for New Hampshire. She's on Twitter as well. You'll see me if you follow me. You're going to see me retweet her constantly because she has all of the guns of the damn the existing Senate pack aimed on her. And because like we couldn't get more than one person running for primary. So they managed to focus all their attention on her, and they have very deep pockets. So we're up against a real like entrenched machine here. She's the most important state thing in the state. The governor race, I'm backing Chuck Morris because he came out in favor of Defend the Guard. And I thought that was very bold. He's the only gubernatorial candidate in the entire country that's doing so. As far as like the stuff that I disagree with him on, I also disagree with Kelly Ayotte. There's no functional difference on the things that I disagree with between either of them. Right. And then of course I'm backing Lily for Congress and CD2.
Lily's fantastic. And I'm sure a lot of you guys recognize Lily from the David Hogg Spike Cohen debate as well, where she said, basically, that the gun control debate was over. I can't remember exactly.
She asked David Hogg, she says, can you guarantee that my government, this government in the United States will never become as tyrannical as the one that I left in China? David Hogg says, no, I can't promise you that. And she replies, then the gun debate is over.
It's over. And, actually I have Spike Cohen coming on the show this next Wednesday. So
awesome.
I'm very excited for that. He's a really good guy. But dude, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Coming on. You are without a doubt my favorite state rep in the entire state.
Thank you.
And you're a metalhead. You got great taste in music. And we will certainly have you on again, and I'll talk to you again soon. I'll drop you backstage real quick, wrap up the
All right.
show, and then we can talk in a few. All right.
All right, sweet. Thanks, man.
Cool. Thank you guys all so much for watching tonight. I hope that was enlightening for you guys. There are libertarians that run in other political parties. This happens. This actually happens. Principle is bigger than party. Liberty is bigger than a political party. And hope you guys can appreciate that. Hope you guys love the show. And please support Tom Mannion with his re-election campaign, as well as Lily Tang Williams and Emily Phillips. That would be amazing. So, all right, without a doubt, I'll see you guys on Wednesday when I have Spike Cohen on. And yeah, have a good night. We'll see you.